So, I don't know, something came across my mind. I don't know why. Well, I know why. I was watching a video about it, and had just talked to my friend about the concept of the Black Iron Prison, and then I saw a few people talking about it, and it's funny. And then I was thinking how BIP, the initials, Black Iron Prison, is 92, and so the BIP, or Black Iron Prison, is 111, which is funny because that's like the bars but it's really just you could think of it as the lines of the forces or the vectors or the field. And really the Cabal of Nine Chambers is supposed to be symbolic of like a sort of inner fractal palace. So instead of the Black Iron Prison, it could be, the inner palace. Depending on, obviously that's got a lot of symbolism to it, the 111 being Malkuth, and there is something to the inversion and that Saturnian shithole quality. But yeah, I did that Liber Had video, and I felt compelled because 555 kept coming up, and it was recently I realized that Hadit is actually 999, and then it says, find the numbers of Hadit, and I don't know, it's just funny because 999's left out. Crowley didn't mention it, even though it's so obvious as Therion. Alright, so wanted to read, I guess, what is it? Deconstructing the Construct. I wrote this November 9th, 2012, and it was like a Kabbalistic analysis, I guess, of the beginning of the Matrix, or at least the beginning of the post is. Hebrew English gematria, it's 243, the number of sleeping and beginnings, the meaning of Genesis. Ur Hekau also, which is like the magic power and the Egyptian of the Egyptians or whatever. The Caduceus and the Ida Seshumna and Pingala, which is that, obviously. Neo is obviously an anagram of 1, and they equal 125, but together, it makes me think of the Magus card, how he's Beth, which is 2, obviously, but it's the first, or the one card, so it's symbolic, basically, of the merging of the two sides and the two pillars, and just all dualities, basically. That's why the Magus, the whole formula is 9-2, or basically Chakma is just the line, basically, which is the will, and it ends up coming around somehow in full circle with the whole spiral. But yeah, 250 is the dream and fractal, and that's why I like the fractal of manifestation and the dream of manifestation. The Matrix has you. It's 912, and Prometheus, he's the one who brings the fire of the gods. At least in Greek is 912. In Hebrew English, it can be 1111, which symbolizes, again, that channel. The magical computer, and the Voodoo Gnostic workbook talks all about magical computers, and it has everything to do with that whole automata idea, and even sigils, and the whole idea of demons and stuff. And really, in a way, it's basically affecting your will on nature, obviously, again. And so we have magical computers all around us, really, so to speak, but they're not really empowering us personally. They're really controlling us. But let him come through the first ordeal, and it will be to him as silver. Follow the white rabbit. And the white rabbit is symbolic of a lot of things, and that obviously goes to Alice in Wonderland and all that stuff. But 881 is the Matrix in Greek, which is funny. Translation: the ultimate spark, telekinesis, artificial intelligence, and not human. The white rabbit is 1060 or 1060. The 1 is here. I have opened the gate, the alphabetical code. The white rabbit in, I guess, Jewish gematria is 1329, which is 1060 plus 269 gematria, or the plus 250, which again is the dream or the fractal. So that's what I think of when I think of the rabbit hole, so to speak, is like, because the rabbit is symbolic of the moon. The moon and the rabbit are connected, and obviously Yesod symbolizes that spiral and the thread and the whole eye of the dragon that's formed in the the last 4 Sephiroth of Malkuth, Yesod, Hod, and Netzach, and their paths, if you add them all up, or no, not the paths, but the spheres equal the same number as Draconcha, and that's the eye of the dragon, which again it like opens on to the 4th or 5th dimension. Really, again, the 4th dimension is time. The other 3 dimensions are spatial. So what then would be the data or the plasma or the activation, the elements? Again, those are elemental in that sense, but there is that 5th which is invisible, and that's kind of what this all symbolizes. And this whole thing about the gate of onyx, Kenneth Grant mentions in the Book of the Spider, Liber Akbish, and that has everything to do with basically time again, and Saturn, basically onyx, the gate of onyx. And he never mentions that it's 333, but 333 again is the seed, the tree, and the cycles of time and all that, and sort of the Draconcha in a way is that 333 angle portal thing. So yeah, the open doth, the stargate, and the triple stone. And yeah, 333 has everything to do with time. It's CERN in Geneva, I believe. Yeah, CERN plus Geneva, which is where it's at in Switzerland. It's the Higgs boson, which I've said for a long time since I will get to the whatever post I first realized it. I felt like I had to mention it, but it shows that particle field similarity and how 333 again, it's like indicates that background, that whole the number field and whatnot. And it didn't take me a 17-mile, however fucking long and deep it is, it didn't take me that fucking much money and effort to discover it. But I'm not using it to ramrod God up the ass basically and try and control the timelines either, but perfection is 438, the whole or perfect stone, Abin Shalima in Hebrew, which Freder Chod talks about, and that he associates that with that 13-pointed star, and with the points being manifestation, and Kenneth Grant talks about this extensively and outside the circles of time, and he mentions perfect being ion, like Yod, Vav, Nun final, in verse 716 of the Book of the Spider. And the icosahedron stood out. I know it's 888 in one format, but it's got 20 faces. In this form, it's 1128, which is 1 through 47, which is the Egg of Lamb, and Harpocrates, which is also 888. The Globed Priest, which again is the Egg of Lamb, mentioned in the Book of the Law. Icosahedron, the 9 numbers, a message from God, and the Mayan calendar end date in Greek. And again, the Mayan calendar, this was all coming about like before all this knowledge was coming to me, like around the time that everyone was worried about the Mayan calendar, just because it was discussed mainly since the 80s and 90s and 2000s, like increasingly as it came. And I didn't really, even then, I wasn't all paranoid. I didn't think it would be the end of the world so much. I mean, I figured, yeah, we're coming to a point where something's got to change. Humanity's got to clean up their act, or we're going to destroy ourselves, which is still the case and probably will be forever. And but I knew that at least the old world was changing. Like, it's the end of the old world. And again, like the Mayan calendar, Maya means illusion or magic, and that's why the magician card is named Mayan, basically, according at least to Liber 418. And that's the only place I've seen that. But Mayan is also 102, and that's my actual name in simple gematria. And the formula of 102 is deep, as Kenneth Grant mentions, and it's that Lamal formula, and just a lot of things. It's final H, like the final hey, but then spelled out, adding another hey, it's 107. And so I've noted that whole connection, 5 being this difference number kind of too, with the whole Gimel and Cheth thing, which in being aware of helps you, like, again, all these things, you'd only see probably half of them, one side or the other, but at least seeing them all, you can kind of see it. Again, it involves being aware and cognizant of that sort of veil or key. And again, the hey formula is a big thing in the Book of the Law, which I'll get into. And then, again, this whole Mayan calendar thing of the 12, and then with the 13, like 1212, 1212 is the Eon of Horus, and then 1313, 1313 is the Eon of Maat. And the whole thing about the Eon of Maat is that it is outside the circles of time, but yet concurrent therewith. And so it's like that axle, which 13 symbolizes, and 13 being the death card and all that. It's just symbolic of that cycle of transformation, and especially the solar symbol itself. So B itself is 12. 1 through 12 is 78, the number of, which is Melissa, but also in Greek it's 486, but 78 is the number of the tarot cards, and it's Mesla, which is like the influence from the stars, and then Iwas as well. Hebrew English gematria of 486 is path, gateways, wormholes, 4 elements, the Ankh, alien portal, and those are all symbolic of that sort of what the bee symbolizes, which is it goes and it's the abit, and it kind of guides the soul. But the way in which the bees have a lot of stuff to them, which I'll get into, like the bee language and how they dance and whatnot. Like, because I found this book about it, and then I've just decoded some of that stuff, and it seems to me to be another type of geometric language that can be decoded further. Same with like the beat sequencing of just even certain drum patterns and whatnot. You can kind of convey data that way, and then therefore that's obviously what, again, I'll get into further, is the whole basis behind certain devices, at least the ideas behind them, is to convey data, because that's really to pick up, receive, and transmit data, basically in the form of binary sequences or other modulated sequences and whatnot. And what basically even the bee, again, the buzzing symbolizes is this transmission of data, and that's what certain corporations and factions and whatnot are working on and experimenting on people with, is various forms of, subsonic, ultrasonic, scalar devices, whatnot. 12 hours of the Great Wheel of Time and 12 zodiac symbols, 78 tarot cards, which is 6 times 13, 13M, and 6 is Vav, so it's Mu, or Om, The beehive is 448, the number of light, psychokinesis, and Betel. And Betel is like that omphalos or stone, sacred stone, which kind of the beehive looks like, because it's like dome-like. And again, the whole Capitol building, and they had these bee coins. The beehive in Jewish gematria is 847, which is supreme mathematics, and G plus 7, the whole seventh point obviously being the G, and G is the seventh letter, implying again gematria. And the Kenneth Grant mentions actually this phrase in, I think it's verse 512, but the lightning of Zane is also 333, and again, there's so much to that. It activates that whole 3-3. The 3 is like the Tao says that, first there's 1, then there's 2, then there's 3, and from all that everything's created. And again, that has to do with that, with the supernal triad and the activation and the force that comes from that primal froth, or whatever you want to call it. Just that's where Doth activates, basically, in space and time. And the lightning of Zane being, again, also symbolic of just that sword, or the inner light. The Freemasonic symbology of the architecture in Washington, D.C. is replete with occult concepts and references. As we all know, there's The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital by David Oveson, The Sacred Geometry of Washington, D.C., which I pulled up because I found this book. It was like, oh god, another book about it, but it was actually more in depth than most. It even mentions 666 somewhere, how it's built in there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of beside the point. This was when I was really just, again, starting out, and it was just like, holy shit, how come no one sees that? Or, I mean, obviously some people see it, but then how come the people in power, or like the people in Washington, don't seem to question or care? I mean, if anything, usually they're like, oh yeah, it's, we're on the side, the winning team side. It's like, well, I'm not against America or anything like that. I actually, again, I think that the original principles of what America stood for, in which now we're somewhat getting back to, hopefully, I don't know, are important and relatively new in the scheme of things. But the problem is there's a facade, and they like you to think that, oh, it's all peaceful and wonderful and fine and dandy, but the way that they have such damage control and cleaning up, and the media mind controls everybody. So people are breaking out of it somewhat, but even in that way, a lot of that is, controlled, and you just have to discern continually. But the star Sirius is a binary star, and the lesser star, Sirius B, is depicted on the smaller star as the smaller star to the bottom left, the pentagon. Even the hieroglyph of Sirius contains the predominant elements of the architecture: the obelisk, the Washington Monument, the five-pointed star, the pentagon, and the dome, the Capitol building. Which isn't bad. I mean, Sirius is a major thing in, like, of orientation. It's the blazing star of the Masons, and there's just a lot. It goes back, but again, they tend to use all this symbolism in an inverted fashion, so that's also telling. Although Sirius is oriented to the south, and the north is actually considered the realm of evil, so in a way, it's actually right side up. But it's just, everything's fucking backwards and upside down, topsy-turvy. What's more is, not only is the White House 13 blocks south of the Masonic Temple, or north if everything's upside, and an inverted cross is formed by the lower line of the pentagram, which is also 13 blocks. As I mentioned, in Phoenix Rising, 1313 is the number of the Eon of Maat, and Apocalypsi, yeah, which is the dual component of the Eon of Horus, 1212. Together they are 2525, the dual stars, again, which implies Sirius. but because 5 times 5 is 25, obviously, and it also makes me think of the AA for some reason, just as the dual star. But Revelation 13:13 says, "And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men," which again connects back to Prometheus, which is 11:11. So again, you got 11:11, 12:12, 13:13. The Capitol building, other than being surrounded by an owl, symbolic of knowledge, is reminiscent of the beehive as well, where rule and justice are meant to be centered. The bee is not only a symbol of immortality and resurrection, but sacred knowledge, obviously. The Freemasons, that's a Masonic engraving, I believe. They revere, or they, use the bee as a symbol, as well as the Merovingians and the Egyptians. But the owl is typified by Moloch, the Janus face of Thaumiel, whose counterpart is Satan in the Qliphoth. Thaumiel means the twins of God, the Qlipha of Kether, the Qliphoth, or dark side of Kether. It should then be noted that most of these particular symbols represent not only Kabbalistic concepts, but also Qliphothic concepts. Again, the whole inversion. The Tree of Life plus the Tree of Death is 1871. The square and compass, which is funny because reversed, it's, hold on. The first verse of Genesis, the magic code of manifestation, and the year the Freemasonic textbook Morals and Dogma was published by Albert Pike. Reversed 1871 is 1781. And it enumerates the phrase, the marriage of opposites, the double wand of power plus the Tree of Life, or as the Tree of Life, the number of the universe, and the implication. In the year Uranus was discovered. Uranus is attributed to Thoth. And I think it's 1871, but the Coming Race also comes to mind by Edward Bulwer Lytton, which also symbolizes this sort of alien infiltration, but of beings that are underground and that have been here all along. In Hebrew English Gematria, 847 is also the manifestation of the secret ion, or the secretion, in the star tetrahedron, which is like the Merkaba. And the secret ion, Kenneth Grant mentions, that's where that comes from. And the secretion is basically how it's symbolic of that whole, what 17 is symbolic of, as the life, Ayu or Vata, the air, the life wind, or the life force, which comes again out of that, the movement of the elements, or the swastika, and in its positive sense, obviously, as the movement and the whirling motion and whatnot. And that secret ion, which is the factor in, or not, there's a lot of factors, infinite and unknown, but it's one of the factors in infinite and unknown, in the sense that it's hard to quantify and find, yet it's the source of awareness itself. The whole matrix symbolism, again, they kind of feed off our life force, another story or whatever, which is all too symbolic. But 7 stars, which is Ursa Major, the Great Bear, or Typhon, the mother of all monsters, the mother of Set, Sirius, who is the 8th, or Height, Doth. Counting up from Malkuth, Doth is the 8th, which again is the infinity, the dual one, which when counted from Kether is the 4th down. 11 times 4 is again 44, the years between the Aeon of Horus and the Ma Ion in 1948, and 44 years between then and 1992, when basically I was born, in a total of 11 times 88, or 11 times 8 years. Grant notes that 88 is the number of Cobbs, meaning the star mentioned in AL chapter 1 verse 8, which is composed of water, Aquarius, and fire, Leo. Thus, 88 years after 1904, the dual star was born. I know that's cryptic, but it just, to me, it's symbolic, because the 102, again, it's a lot of things, but it's that transmission formula. 13 letters totaling 1331, and one of my name can be, I like to analyze all the possibles using, the Shin and the Samek and the Hebrew and English and even Greek, and I just saw these inexplicable connections to what I was involved in, and coming to find and read about. And Hecate's Fountain, which, was written or published really the year I was born, and it mentions 102 and all this lamb stuff and all that. But 13 times 102 is 1326, which is the sum of 1 through 51, and 102 is 51 times 50 or plus 51, so it's like the double Mayat, because Mayat is 51. But it's also life and veil and fire or file and evil even. So the illusion, which is fire times 6, Tifereth, plus 666, 1992. The dual star is the magus of the tarot, the maker of illusions, mentioned in the Cry of the Third Ether by Crowley in 1909. The locus of Thoth, the top point of the hexagon of Ruach, the spirit or intellect, or the cube. And it's on the top on the Tree of Life, but really it's Thoth would be, again, the space-time field, which is everywhere. Is reflected in itself and creates a twisting reversal which reflects the light inward. Thus the hollow air of Zero, the Fool, condenses as the sword of light travels down the paths, meeting the water in the middle at Mem, then the fire of Shin, and finally the manifestation of Tau. And 1 through 31 is 496, Malkuth, which is also the body, and that's what Malkuth symbolizes. But 31 is, again, AL, or LA, which is God and not. And so its sum would be, manifestation in Malkuth, or the body, or the daughter. And reflects into the spirit when 0 plus 1, or 1 through 21, including Aleph, the 0, is 231. Is also traversed in the crossing of the abyss and becomes the infinity of the magician. The 231, that's like the Qliphoth. Liber 231 is all about the tunnels of the Qliphoth. The Ankh is the key of life, but obviously it's very similar to the tree of life. When put upright, this arrangement is exactly what would result if an inverted tree of life were to be placed over a regular tree of life, pivoted around Tifereth, and could even be multiplied and extended in 6 different directions around the central focus. So basically have one this way, and this way. And that's like the whole anatomy of the body of God snowflake, which three-dimensionalized, or really four-dimensionalized, is the dodecahedron unfolding. And again, the universe has been found to be dodecahedral. But in this way, the Ankh, or Venus symbol of the Tree of Life, is restored to its eternal/immortal state of perfection, and the Tree of Life blooms into the 19-sphered flower of life, surrounded by the 20th circle, and 20 is Yod in full, and obviously we'll get into 20 next, but that also looks like a triple cube, and the Gra tree was a double cube, but then unfolded basically would make it a triple cube. Pink is the color of Thoth because as the 8th, or height, of the 6 primary secondary colors of the Ruach, it is the purple beyond purple, or the light higher than eyesight, as the reflection of Yesa. And I just use pink kind of symbolically because it came up to me through this Womb of Nuit blog about the pink light and Valis, and again, I found Valis as 107, and it's symbolic of this vast, active, living intelligence system, kind of like the Demiurge. And pink, like the indigo children and all that. The color indigo obviously symbolizes that sort of interdimensional color, or the color beyond color. And that's what pink, like there's a video about how pink doesn't really exist. And obviously it is just red with a little white, but that's why I use like hot pink, because it's symbolic of that like electric, like Shakti force, or just that way out of the color spectrum sort of thing. I think I was going to write Teom, the reverse of Mayat, but I'm not sure. But yeah, Mayat, the counterpart to Horus, doubled, is 102, which is Lamal. 13 plus 13 times 31 is 806, Babylon. which is related to the color pink, and purple beyond purple is 943, and 13, as well as the atomic age and the initials of outside the circles of time. 806 plus its reverse is 608 is 1414, which is Horus, Lamb, and Maat. And Kenneth Grant says that Lamb is the link between the eons of Horus and Maat. And then it's also the way and gateway, the sword and the egg, which again is like 107. From No Expected House, which is AL chapter 1 verse 56, the chapter of New, or in the formula of New. And then the invisible house times 7 is 1414. The 49 rays is 222, fever, the day Lamb descends from death, and the end of the Mayan calendar. And then 806 is Zion, or Zane, which again is like the perfection. But in the Matrix, it's obviously the false perfection. The Mayan calendar date, and the aliens, which are related to Babylon in a lot of ways. The whole Babylon working. And just Babylon as the solar gateway also. The sevenfold light of the Ruach plus the 6 reflections is thus the manifestation of the secret ion. And again, that secret ion is that the whole death card, but it's really the deathless. What's deathless? And Hadith, the knowledge of Hadith is the knowledge of death. But one may have missed it with his Ma, verse 564 of the Book of the Spider, a verse that refers to Frater Achad having took the key of the rituals to be Ma Ion, and in the Ninth Arch, Kenneth Grant refers to the secret word to be secret ion, or the secretion. It is in fact both, for the manifestation is the secretion of the secret ion. Together they are the ones, i.e. the magician, the one's double wand of power, the wand of the force of Kaf Nia. Again, Kaf being the moon, and back of the head, the illusory world, 10 times 10, and Kaf, the wheel, which is like the outer world. Nia, the reverse or inversion of Ain, nothing. And 1 plus 1 is 121, 11 times 11, the illusion, and Satan. The dual polarities of the 1, Horus, 12, the bee, in the middle wherein resides the hidden one, the ring, again, Axel, that's what is symbolic of basically that 13-pointed star, and 13 as the 1 is this, that hollow emptiness is kind of what is symbolic of the Tao, and it's hard to comprehend, but you'll end up doing so once you realize the true nature of being. But corresponding to Set, Soot, black, Set, standing stone. 121 minus 13 is 108, which has a lot of Sanskrit or Hindu correspondences. The fact that the phallus, central to the square and compass of Washington, D.C., which is the monument, is 555 feet tall and 111 feet deep, shows the full enumeration of the 6 points ignited to the fire, 6 times 6, 36, whose mystic number is 666. 111 times 6, obviously, is what sits at 6. This in turn implies the cube of Ruach becomes fractalized by the duality of Dath, knowledge, and thus 6 times 7, being 42, the 42-fold table of wickedness, mentioned also in the Cry of the Third Ether, which I took to be when you take this thing, which I called the Feather of Maat, and then you divide it by 3. It's got these certain numbers that are unique, especially to the Maotian, context or whatever. And 156, Babylon plus 42 is 198, which is 18 times 11. This is the book of the 7 seals in the 42 assessors of Maat, truth and justice. The 6th, Tiferet, or soul, is to multiply and divide itself by all 7 chakras, wheels, or seals, or kalas, to purify itself. This may be happening macrocosmically in our solar system as we align with Thoth, or the galactic center, because the end of the Mayan illusion calendar is in 2012, the year of the manifestation of the secret ion. 42 times 42 is 1764. The pine cone in Greek in 2012. 1764 in Jewish gematria is also fresh fever from the sky. The tablet is composed of the 9 numbers arranged in a way that yields 7 ascending and descending numbers which are reflected and divided. 6 times 7 times 9 is 378. The 9 numbers with the whole 6 times 7. Which is 1 through 27. Iwas, secret name, chosen ones. It is written, conduit closing, which is from that whole crabwood crop circle message. Armageddon, and that goes back to Hrumachus or Har, the child, Horus. There are really 27 Hebrew letters, including the final letters, which, again, that's the cube. I have found that 2012 is 66 years after the Babylon working in 1946, as 2011, the year of my receiving of the egg of Lamb, or Mu is the reverse of Om, corresponds to 1945, when Kenneth Grant received the Portrait of Lamb from Aleister Crowley, which was also 66 years apart. 1947, the year when Babylon, i.e. aliens, is said to have manifested, corresponds to 2013. And the triple connection of these dual synchronicities are verified by the fact that 66 is 1 through 11, and 33 plus 33. And then Horus and Set is 2013, which was, again, like the manifestation of... 2012 is the manifestation, and that's when all this knowledge kind of came to manifestation through this blog, but then it kind of started becoming more balanced in 2013. And I started seeing like both sides of everything. But 66 times 3 is 198 again. 1904, the Eon of Horus, plus 198 is 2102, the reverse of 2012, the 108th year of the Eon of Horus. 2000 is 11 plus 33, the number of the secret of the universe. He cometh on a great wind, plus 12, 2012, the manifestation, plus 102, 2102. So again, it can be broken down in various ways as the matrix, or the fractal, and the archons. What will manifest in 2013, only time, chronos, will tell. It will likely have to do with the 66 year previous date, 1947. And 1090 is the center, timeless, the arrival of aliens, and the day Lamb descends from death. And again, I was really preoccupied with this whole idea because my whole childhood was saturated by alien movies, alien dreams. My aunt telling me that where she lived in Payson, she would see UFOs all the time. It just made me interested in some of this stuff. And I still think that that's, like Crowley says, that meeting higher intelligences will be one of the next major steps in human advancement or evolution. But again, that will be only after we reach certain stages of maturity, I think. But again, there were these certain movies, and I thought were just, they came up to my mind. Another correspondence in the 66 years between 1945 and 2011 is that 1945 was the year the first atomic bomb was detonated, and 2011 was the year of the disaster at Fukushima, two of the most significant nuclear atomic events in the history of mankind. Again, of course, I didn't think of Chernobyl, and then also all the nuclear waste that they've disposed of or dumped into the oceans, like from 1946 to 93. Another tangential tantrum in these 6 dates is the fact that 1945 plus 1946 plus 1947 plus 2011, 2012, and 2013, those main years, which, when divided by 6, is 1979, Hecate's Fountain, Kenneth Grant's 6th Typhonian Trilogy, which is all about the tangential tantrum surrounding the events of New Isis Lodge, which again was during the 50s when there was like a lot of major UFO flaps. But 1979 was 13 years prior to 1992, the year the book was Hecate's Fountain was released, along with 13 times 102 plus 5. The mention of the bee is relevant since its number is 12, and is a glyph of Mayat, whose letter is Lamed, adjustment, the 12th letter. The day-side zootype of Maat is the bee, while the night-side zootype is the spider. Or also, you could think of it as the beetle, because the beetle with the Kephra and all that, whose number is 13, and Web equals 13. Together they symbolize the sun and the moon, which when conjoined, 12 times 13 is 156, Babylon, the gate of the sun. 12 plus 13 is 25 and reduces to 7 the number of the letters of Babylon. And the whole formula of 7 of, that the seal of the AA. 806 or 608 reduces to 14, which again their sum was 1414. 7 times 2 or 28, which is 2 sevens, which 7 times 2 is 28, 1 through 7. 14 reduces to 5, and 2 of them multiply to equal 12 plus 13. So 5 times 5. Therefore, the beehive is really the supreme mathematics of the G7, which in turn shows the effects of deciphering gematria, basically how it's all interwoven. A spider web, the invisible house, is unearthed, hence the bee as a symbol of the link to the underworld, unlocking the logos, or word, and fully engendering Christ consciousness. 794, Este Theos, ye are gods. The hexagon is the six-sided shape, implying the perfection of light, which, the beehive and the hexagons. The perfection of light for the beehive also equals 448 light. Incidentally, I was born at 4:48 a.m. Morpheus is 706, master, Gnosticism, the night side of Eden, east in the Ancient of Days. In Greek mythology, Morpheus is the shaper of dreams, and 1315, which again veils the 14, or Zahab, or the 14th eon. The great work, the hexagram, the pyramid activation, the code of the cosmos, and Pazuzu in Greek, which is 107 in Hebrew English, as Grant mentions in verse 107, or the commentary of it. Trinity is 689, the Roswell crash, eternity, hyperspace, Lamb's legions. It's also Kenneth Grant books. The Trinity test is 1813, which is a reverse of, Revelation 13:18. The atom bomb, Isis, Osiris, Horus, and Maat, the Father, Mother, Son, and Daughter, which is the Tetragrammaton, and the family and God. The Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation. Here's the Merovingian, I believe the plantared crest, or I forgot whose crest that is, but the Merovingian bee is obviously the fleur de lis, or flower of life, and it's 1342, a permutation of 1, 2, 3, 4. The Great Database, the Seven Seals, the Ark of the Covenant, and Somata, body. The 7 seals are the 7 chakras, or 7 colors of Ruach. 1414 minus 1342 is 72. Librael, chapter 2, verse 72. I am the Lord of the double wand of power, and the force of the wand of the force of Kophnia, but my left hand is empty, for I have crushed an universe, and naught remains. 1414, again, is the invisible house times 7. The rays of light and Lucifer. The Merovingian is 855. He is the one, open, in the circles of time. 855 is one more than 854, the construct in the flower of life. The bee gives the flower of life with its 1 had hay star. The bee, 12 plus 1 equals 13, the flower / fleur de lis that blooms into the cube of Metatron. Nectar is 676, which is God times 26, Yod-He Vav-He, or Yod-He, God and Satan. The nectar is 659 is the source of the atomic code, which one may unlock via the formula of the manifestation of new Isis as the egg of Ma'ayan, which is 1318, when we reach the galactic plane. Metatron is 384 in Hebrew English, which is Aquarius, Chaos, Opposite, Exacxar, and Omagos, the Magician. 984, which is Metatron. There's also 9, I believe, with a Yod, another Metatron. But in Hebrew is Egyptian pyramids and the manifestation of Lucifer. Lucifer, which the Egyptian pyramids, they connect to Melchizedek and Metatron and Enoch. You just have to read, The Man Who Built the Great Pyramid by Sidney Bristow. She links a lot of these figures. But 1034 is constant, time loop, extraterrestrial, Word, the Law, and Levitation. And then 1166 is Serpentarius, which is the 13th sign, the Great Grimoire, Ceaseless Becoming, and 1425, the Book of Revelation, the Secret of Pink, Time Loop again, and Ophion, the Serpent or Ouroboros, which connects with that, and the Secret of Pink being that whole Valis thing, holographic universe. Metatron's Cube is 396, Ipsissimus, Supreme, Mayan Calendar, Galactic Alignment, The Secret and Horoscope. 460 is Gematria in Greek, the Mayan Calendar, Anatole or the East. 767 is Metatron's Cube in Hebrew, the Antichrist, the Apocalypse, the Magus of Ma'ayan, and the Forbidden Knowledge. 851, the Work of Ages, Talisman and Martyr. 1417, the Book of the Spider and Mother Maiden and Crone. 1758, Metatron's Cube in Greek, and Crack the Fractal. And again, these higher numbers, they can seem complicated, and they can be complicated, but it's a lot easier to see their value when you look at the tables of like the mystic sums of numbers, like 1 through 111 especially, and then the like all the cubes of the cube values of numbers, and to see how those things interplay. And you can see again with the recursive nature of 1 through 9 or 1 through 10, you can, once you see those dynamics and how things play out kind of and interconnect and refract and reflect, again, the gematria adds a new dimension, or like an actual meaningful dimension to the numbers themselves. Like the numbers alone have properties that are distinguishable and you can see, but then when you add the gematria and the meaning, and then even their expressions in nature and in history even, you start really seeing the value of the values. And this whole post was kind of me trying to crack the fractal and see into the system, so to speak, the mainframe of the construct. And the construct is 820, which is Kaf. When you add the 1, which is like the axle of Kaf, the Wheel of Fortune, it's 821, which is Ma'ayan, the Coming of Lamb's Egg. And 821 is also the title of The Strange Life of Ivan Ossikin, which is P.D. Ouspensky's book about eternal recurrence, basically, and like the fact that, I don't know, you'd have to read it, and there's a movie they made out of it. I forgot what it's called, Groundhog Day or something. And then a perpetual scenario is also 820. Or 821. And that goes with that Strange Life of Ivan Ossikin book and idea. Again, the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Time, Samsara. And 821 Ma'ayan that's my birthday, August 21st, and then I got this whole egg of Ma'ayan and all that, and that's when I saw Ma'ayan with an N final as 821, and the Coming of Lamb's Egg. All of this is still being refined, but so far I'm sure it has much to do with the code in AL chapter 2, verse 76. 76 times 11, basically the two pillars, is 836, 418 plus 418, the proof, union, computer program, and the decrypted code. And that made me think of the whole scene in The Matrix where Neo sees the source code of reality, or underlying reality, or the superficial manifest reality. The architect is 1046. Matter, the Gematria Dictionary, Gematria Revelation, Kether and Doth, which corresponds with Horus and Set. Thunderous, paternalism, the beehive of humanity, or the apiary, basically, our cage. Wormholes, the pit of hell, the color ring, Mayan calendar, and a man named Black will open the gate, which is that verse from the Ninth Arch about the gate of onyx and these codes and whatnot. 76 times 10 is 760, which I referred to in A Hive of Sleeping Bees in 761, and how it's like the spider and the web and the thread. But it's Kether Chakma Binah, the Matrix, Archon Computer, Arachne, the Weaver of the Web, the Ninth Arch, the book I was just talking about, and Nuit, which, that book combines all these things, basically. 761 is the Matrix plus 1, basically, conspiracy and the Gematria Code. 760 plus 761 is 1521, Expect him not from the east nor the west, the 22 paths, the power of the pineal gland, the invisible light, go towards the light. Those go with, if you've ever had a DMT trip, it's kind of like an explosion of light. And once you go through the breakthrough and like relax and let go, I don't know, it's just carries you through what I think is probably similar to the Amenta or the Bardo. But Lam is Akbi spider riding, Liber Akbish, verse 5. And Akbi is 102, and then the spider riding is 6 at 6. What meaneth this, O prophet, is also this. So all these things kind of relate. Again, Akbi 102, which is Akbish without the shin. Plus 1521 is 1623, the chosen one. I am the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is merely the scorpionic aspect of the death card. So since the Christ force is the light of the life force, the Antichrist force is really the death current. And the thing is that I don't really think I'm the Antichrist, but just the formulas are significant regarding the Antichrist. And in facing that sort of energy and that sort of Apollyon and Abaddon as the destroyer, I've kind of integrated the knowledge of what those really mean, and it's I don't know. You just have to look into it, and it can be kind of empowering, especially when you've been ridiculed or persecuted or whatever. The Antichrist current is kind of, in a way, the hidden Christ current, or because in a lot of ways, obviously the Christianity itself has been negated and perverted and inverted, so that, like again, Crowley and the 666 and all this stuff, it's actually got a silver lining or a gold lining to it that only certain people will be able to see. If you're looking for the negative, you'll only find the negative, and it just so happens, unfortunately, the so-called Christians are the ones to do that for the most part. But again, the 17th page of the original manuscript of Liber Ale indicates in cipher the identity of the child in question, which Grant says in the thing about the 17s in the 9th arch. And it's actually, when you counting the title page of Liber Ale as 1, the child who is to come from no expected house is found, as Grant says, in cipher, in the underlined word he, towards the bottom of the 16th page, which is actually the 17th page. He or he is also mentioned on the page number 17 towards the bottom as well. He is had. He, which is 5 plus 5 is 10. Had, 5 plus 1 plus 4 is 10. He or he is also the letter He, attributed to none other than the star, the 17th Atu. The manifestation of the child 88 years into the Aeon of Horus signifies the child, Horus, Mal, will be contrasted by the secret Ion, Set or Lamb, who manifested 66 years after 1945, when Lamb was received by Grant. An egg of Lamb is 66. 66 is 22 less than 88, the letters of manifestation and secret Ion. Note also that the word manifestation appears in the first and 66th verses of the chapter 1 of Liber Ale. In counting the 0 or egg, 1945 was, again, 1 through 21, or 22 years after Grant was born. 2012 being the year of the manifestation of the secret Ion, or Ma-Ion, is then justified in that 107 is the number of Ma-Ion, Bitsa, an egg, oval, the magic egg, alien egg, Aquarius, and an obsidian egg. An alien egg, that makes me think of the movie Alien. It's got the alien egg. But plus 1 is 108. Geometry, the spiral, 55. It's also 2012 and the 108th year of which implies the Aeon of Horus. 55, which is 1 through 10, and DNA is 55, implying the spiral, the geometry, and the data, and all that. All having to do with the sacred geometry of manifestation, the Akashic field / the matrix of its secretion. The ties between the Manifestation 2012 and the Secret Ion, which is the 2013, further connect by the fact that the icosahedron, or the perfect ion, has 20 sides and 13 points, counting the center point. 20 times 13 is 260, the number of Barachial, the tunnel or Qliphoth of Beth, the magician, as well as Lucifer, the light mentioned earlier. And 260, and if you read that whole chapter in Night Side of Eden on Barachial, it's all about the Black Brothers and using science as a sort of weapon and to control. So that's significant. But 260 is also the number of fresh fever from the skies, and the 13th tarot card. Again, death and the aliens. Aliens and death. Conquering. Any point on either the downward or upward triangles within a sphere are at 19.47 degrees, which Richard Hoagland talks about. This formula is tied in with the Merkaba in the icosahedron and holds the keys to the outer gateways mentioned in the books of Kenneth Grant in these 20 pages of this grimoire, It's All in the Egg, thus far. I think I had one other post, and it was just like a picture or something, and it was kind of like a preview kind of thing, or just a sort of in progress picture, but which I deleted. So that's why it says 20. But Merkaba plus L, Lamed, adjustment, 12. As Merkaba, that equals 444. The key, Gematria, and DMT, the spirit molecule, the Akasha, Tarot, occult. The egg of Mu is the egg of Doth, and they both equate, since Mu is the reversal of Om, which, the sucking back of creation. The word of manifestation, and therefore the secret ion. 0 equals 2. It's really 0 equals 3, because the 3 comes out of that, but from 3 everything else. So that's what the 3 zeros, or the Ein Sof Or, symbolize. 1945 plus 2 is 1947, the 23rd card, which is the hidden tarot card, so to speak. The divine operating system, kind of like the digital operating system. Connection, alliance, communication, the alien harvesters, the secret has been revealed, it is already too late, killing the Antichrist, the year of the end of the world, infinite space and infinite star, or the infinite stars thereof, the ascension of Malkuth. And these, again, were just things that came up, and I don't necessarily think there's much to them, but a few of them. 2011 plus 12 is 2013. Horus and Set, Ain as heaven times Haiti, hell, synchrotron, from no expected house cometh that child, to happen, occur, going wrong, erring, confusion or upset, and breaking or refraction as in optics. Again, the deconstructing the construct. I am the child of thy bowels is 1417, the number of Shaitan in its high value. The 000, again, which I just mentioned. The Magus of Ma Ion, and the Book of the Spider, and Metatron's Cube. And there's a diagram of the whole 19.47. Fire and water balanced is Mayat, the balancer, and then deconstructing the construct is 1370, which again, that's like creation, and then 1000, which is the microcosm, or 1000 is a symbol of the Fool, but also the Magus and their connection. Breach the system, and the opener of Doth. So yeah, that's all just crazy shit that I was exploring. And I don't know, The Matrix is a good movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you probably have. It's an okay movie. But I'm surprised there's not a Philip K. Dick Vallis movie. There's a Scanner Darkly, and that Radio Free Albemuth, and a few other movies based on his books, but Vallis would be kind of cool. But it would just look like a rehash of The Matrix, kind of. Also, their little pink vats. But yeah, I pulled up some things about 19. It's the 19th post, and it's the number of Eve, obviously in Hebrew, which means to manifest. And 19 is related to 37. It's also related to 13, though. And 1 through 13 is 91, the reverse of 19. And then man, M-A-N, or Amen, which is the hidden God to the Egyptians. And then Lord God, so that connects believe, faithful, the temple of the Lord, my throne, angel. Angel is also just messenger. And then 19 times 19, Crowley even already, he mentions it in the Sefer Sephiroth as basically the supernal triad, the Ruach, and Malkuth. God damn it. Which he doesn't give it the diagram here. It's usually in the book itself, but it's the god of Malkuth, or manifestation, foundations, the mountain Zion, and ruler of Saturn. So that's all significant. And I talked about 361 and the new formula, or the new model of the universe, which is like a play on words of A New Model of the Universe by Uspensky, because the new model of the universe is 666, and the universe is 361, which is, again, the circle and the point, and that's the symbol of the universe, pretty much, and it's the solar symbol. Solar is 361, and it's the power symbol. And from the 361, a lot can be derived. It's a very geometrical. Oh yeah, it's the geometry, or 19 plus 342. I pulled up this PDF. It's about 19, and when I was 19, that's when I found this book, and there's a lot to the number 19 he goes through. And then of course the number of the sun. It's the sun tarot card, so 19 times 19 being 361, the solar symbol, is pretty telling. And what else? Samadhi in its full, and with Shin, is 361, and that's the unity of the without and the within. Number 19 is, or I'll read this thing up here because it's usually good. The 19th path is the intelligence of all the activities of the spiritual beings, and is so called because of the affluence diffused by it from the most high blessing and most exalted sublime glory. Everyone who has any idea of the ancient Egyptian exoteric faith is quite aware that for the multitudes, Osiris was the sun in heaven, the heavenly king, that by the Greeks the sun was called the eye of Jupiter. As for the modern Orthodox Parsi, he is the eye of Ormuzd, that the sun, moreover, was addressed as the all-seeing God. The all-seeing eye is obviously associated. Number 19 is the number of ultimate attainment, both as 19 and as 1 plus 9, or 10. As number 19, it is associated in all mythology and legends with the sun, and every nation of antiquity which has in any way represented this number has connected it with the great spiritual sun, while in the mysteries, number 18 brings the candidate to the mastery of the sun, i.e. the vital energies and magnetic forces which in nature are focused in the physical sun. In the spiritual life of the initiate, the step symbolized by 19 is nothing less than the understanding of, correlating with, and complete mastery and control of the corresponding forces of the spiritual sun acting in himself and the world. Here, the initiate must stand firm and strong in the full knowledge of his elevation and the powers he has attained. Here, in perfect yet not abject humility, he must prepare for a still higher climb. As 19 equals 1 plus 9, 10, it of course represents the completion of a great cycle of the one life which now has been tried and tested, and which finds its culmination in the great sun or fire of initiation. One who has attained to number 19 becomes a sun initiate, a great light ready to accomplish for the world and humanity on the inner planes that which is comparable to the work the sun accomplishes for the earth, i.e. giving light, warmth, love, and inspiration, to quicken the seeds of good that they may grow in mankind and bring forth fruit. Again, that makes me think of that point in the circle, growing and, creating. It's like the babe in the egg almost. And by the fire of intense love and purity transmute the evil emanations of corruption and putrefaction, the disintegration of evil, into higher and constructive manifestations of life, to bring to mankind the vital energy of spiritual life, ultimate peace, harmony, happiness, and fruitfulness, in fact, to bring good out of evil. Again, I always try to look for the positive in the negative, and in doing so, you're called negative, and it's like, what the fuck? Although throughout the ages many have reached this point, comparatively few have been able to withstand its awful temptations. Those who conquer become the masters of the Great White Lodge, while those who fail become the masters of the black or left-hand path, the brothers of the shadow, being far below this point. For ere this point is reached, each must deliberately have chosen his path as Superman. Here they find awaiting them that residue of the unredeemed karma of past lives, which up to this point they have not had the power to redeem. And often they return and perhaps spend incarnation after incarnation before this gate, until they finally conquer. Then they reach number 19, at which step they perfect the lessons learned by all the experiences passed through. Hence there are but few in each age who reach 19. It is therefore rightly called the fruit of ages. It is said that when one soul reaches this step, the whole earth thrills with joy, and henceforth he is one of the twice born. Behold the mellow light that floods the eastern sky. In signs of praise both heaven and earth unite, and from the fourfold manifested powers a chant of love ariseth, both from the flaming fire and flowing water, and from sweet-smelling earth and rushing wind. All nature's wordless voice in thousand tones ariseth to proclaim, Joy unto ye! A pilgrim hath returned back from the other shore. A new Arhan is born. It's like an Arhat, I guess. The following are the various interpretations of number 19. Master of the sun, wisdom, great light, vital energy, magnetism, joy, happiness, strength, success, honor, elevation, and attainment. We also find much mystic lore and so-called superstition connected with the number 19. Among many trinkets found in Egyptian tombs, there is a chain with 19 links, completed by an oval amulet or vignette of Osiris, which links the links being composed of 19 scarabs. Osiris was both the sun god and the god of the netherworld. In reality, the sun when it has sunk below the horizon, yet still a god in no way dimmed in his glory, while Ra is the sun in daytime. Therefore, the Egyptians always associated Osiris with initiation. He was the great initiate into whose care the departing soul was given, and who later was to become identified with him. For every soul who passed the initiation or completed number 19 was called Osiris. And again, the Osiris, his name means like covered in eyes. So if it's the eyes of Osiris, it means the opening of that awareness, becoming one with Osiris. There is a cycle of 19 years called the Metonic cycle, which even by modern astronomers is considered of great importance. In it, according to Metonic cycles, there are 235 lunations, or 10, embracing approximately 6,939 or 9 days. Modern astronomical computations of the 19 solar years also make it approximately 6,939 days, but all agree as to the importance of this 19-year cycle. Since the 5th century BC, it has been noted by astronomers that an eclipse of the sun occurs in the same longitude at intervals of 19 years, these eclipses being looked upon as of great value in predicting physical phenomena. The term Hyperborean land or White Island was a term applied to the continent occupied by the second or Hyperborean race, which was situated in what is now the polar regions. Later, this term was applied to England, including Ireland and Wales, which was also known as Albion, meaning white, because of the sacred college of Druids or sun initiates established there. Thus, Druidic terms and names are often confused with the names in the ancient legends of the sun, such as the story of Latona, the mother of Apollo the sun. Latona represents the polar region and the night, and is said to have been born in the Hyperborean land, now applied to the North Polar regions, but once an inhabited land, wherein all the inhabitants were priests of Apollo. These priests celebrated the descent of Apollo the sun to their country every 19 years. This would coincide with an eclipse of the sun. But Latona represented the Hyperborean or White Island from which the sun or illumination of spiritual understanding was given to the race. The legend relates that Latona, after giving birth to her son, was driven out of her country under punishment of the gods, and the only place of refuge she could find was on the island of Delos, which was chained to the bottom of the sea until Jove in pity permitted it to rise above the waters. For the true wisdom religion, symbolized by the sun worship, before it became degraded, was given to the second race, hence the son of Latona was born in the Hyperborean land, although not where the North Pole is today. That which they called the punishment of the gods by which Latona was driven out of her country was the change in the axis of the earth, after which the polar regions became the uninhabitable land of the frozen north. Delos, the island chained to the bottom of the sea, points to a land that was formed at first by small islands rising out of the ocean. The meaning of Delos is island of delight, the esoteric meaning of which is the spiritual ecstasy which is always chained or imprisoned in the depths of the sea of humanity until Jove, the light of the sun, initiation, sets it free, and it rises to the surface in the consciousness of the initiate. Physically and geographically, at the time of the sinking of Atlantis, the island of Delos, the Asteria of Greek mythology, was never in Greece, for this country in that day was not yet in existence, not even in its molecular form. Several writers have shown that that it represented a country or an island far greater than the small dots of land which became Greece. Pythagoras considers 19 as the denary, or 10, and the triad multiplied by itself, so 10 in the cube. Having considered the meaning of 10 and also considered 9 as 3 times 3, we can well agree that the Pythagorean interpretation that 19 represents wisdom in its application to the absolute. We can also agree with Eliphas Levi when he attributes 19 to the great work by building a highway from the infinite to the absolute. In fact, Levi makes of number 19 the philosopher's stone. We again agree, considering the philosopher's stone not in its literal but in its symbolic aspect. For 19 is the strong stone or rock of wisdom, Petros, upon which the rock of the Church of God must be built. Like the philosopher's stone, it is both one and many. In its analysis, it is a powder, and in its synthesis, a stone. For it is the true God-given wisdom which includes intuition and illumination, and which manifests in the heart and life of the sun initiate, yet is all summed up in the absolute wisdom of divine truth. Like a fine powder, it covers every phase of life, yet when gathered by the sage and synthesized, becomes a great rock of truth against which the waves of ignorance, superstition, and bigotry beat in vain. Says Eliphas Levi, the philosopher's stone, say the masters, may not be exposed to air, nor to the eyes of the profane. It must be kept in concealment and preserved carefully in the most secret receptacle of the laboratory. He who possesses the great arcanum is truly king and is above any king, for he is inaccessible to all fears and to all vain hopes. In any malady of soul or body, a single fragment broken from the precious stone, a single grain of the divine powder, are more than sufficient for their cure. All the chemical elements composing the philosopher's stone found in the universe are also to be found in the body of man, even in their literal sense, that is, as chemical elements. But as long as these elements are separated and scattered, the stone is said to be in a powder which is blown hither and thither by every wind of desire. Only when the initiate lays hold on the wisdom and controls the breath in his own body can he find all these elements. Through the control of the breath in his body, he can ultimately correlate with and control the winds of the cosmos, so that it shall be said of him as of Jesus, "What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" Even though they are scattered as a fine powder, the gathering of these grains of wisdom is the first alchemical step for one who seeks after wisdom. For wisdom is made up of many little things, powder, through the conquering of which he builds the philosopher's stone. So shall he gather this powder step by step, cement its particles with the elixir of life, with love, devotion, and persistence, until he reaches the 19th step, where all shall emerge from the retort of life's experiences as a bright and shining stone. He will then have accomplished the great work and gained the mastery of the sun. Wisdom resteth in the heart of him that hath understanding. Again, the philosopher's stone is man and women sublimed and transfused by the mystical union of spiritual forces, and not merely sexual union. For there are energies and forces on all planes to sublime and transmute, ere it is possible for them truly to become the philosopher's stone. The Hermetic philosophers declare that in the making of this stone there are two essential laws which balance, one against the other, for the stone can be produced only by the universal equilibrium of forces. These two laws are fixity and motion. All that which in its nature tends toward control, rest, and immobility is called feminine and fixed. Hence, a true woman should be the fixed principle. That is, she should be serene, poised, quiet, free from fear, and fixed in faith upon the divine overshadowing mother love, which is the crown of womanhood. Man stands for the volatile or principle of motion and activity. He should be always the active, moving power in all things, while woman should be the inspirer. Man is the executive whose active brain gathers the inspiration of the woman and translates it into understanding ready to be manifested as accomplishment. On the other hand, woman should be the intuitive heart that weighs, ponders, and decides on that which man gathers from the outer world. But the philosophers tell us that to make this stone, the fixed must become volatile, and the volatile become fixed. From this paradox, we can see that both man and woman must concede to each other the power of entering the other's sphere of action. That is, the man must cultivate all the feminine virtues of love, sympathy, restfulness, quiet power, intuition, and synthesis, while woman must cultivate the masculine qualities of will, courage, judgment, and activity of mind. Each must become the complement of the other, combined in the retort of life to produce a new substance. They must stand together through all the vicissitudes and changes that are needed to harmonize, combine, and transmute each into pure gold, and both into one philosopher's stone on which the great temple of the new age can be built, with love as the universal medicine or elixir of life. We can now understand what is indicated by the 19th path as set forth in the Sefer Yetzirah, namely, the intelligence of all the activities of the spiritual beings. For we have seen that 19 represents the blending of all the positive and negative activities. First, it is the gathering together of the forces produced in the mind of man by all his experiences in the outer world, the efforts he has made to rule himself in the experiences of his faculties and the wisdom resulting therefrom. For wisdom is not an accumulated knowledge of things, but is the result of understanding the experiences gained from the things accomplished and the mistakes made. Wisdom is also gained by observing and studying others and learning from their experiences. Exactly as the philosopher's stone is said to be produced from powder, fine dust, so is wisdom gained by the coalescence of the fine grains of experience. Kabbalistically, 19 is called the Luna flame, and is sacred to the moon. This sounds like a contradiction, but it is not. For the Luna flame is the force of the sun, which has given its light to the moon. Hence 19 is the flame of the spiritual sun, which has given its light to man as wisdom. And only as the spiritual sun is reflected in him can he show forth his spiritual light. See, and it goes on. I don't want to read it all because it's already a long video and there's just a lot to it. But that's kind of the meaning of 19. Like I said, these books, the Key of Destiny and the Key to the Universe, are very good books. So yeah, I'll end that there, and the next post 20, I'll read the Key of the Pyramid, and yeah, hopefully that was awakening.